Wes Craven gave us nightmares with The Hills Have Eyes. But what if the gruesome family in that film wasn't just a product of his twisted imagination?
What if it was loosely inspired by a real, allegedly cannibalistic clan from Scotland? Turns out, reality can be way more disturbing than fiction, and maybe a little bit Scottish.
Along the windswept coast of 16th century Scotland, a secret lurked in the caves, a family whose name still sends a chill through the highlands. They were unseen, unheard, until it was far too late.
Welcome back to The Curious Past, the channel where every week we dig up the strangest, creepiest, and most unbelievable stories from history you've probably never heard of. I'm Shan.
And I'm Danny, and today we're venturing into the shadowy corners of 16th century Scotland to explore the legendary figure of Alexander Sawney Bean, also sometimes called Sawney Bean.
Said to be the head of a 45-member clan, their alleged 25-year reign of terror involved the murder and cannibalization of over 1,000 people.
According to legend, Alexander Sawney Bean was born in East Lothian during the reign of King James I of Scotland. Some say he was a tanner by trade, others say he was lazy, violent, and twisted from the start.
Not cut out for his father's trade of ditch digging and hedge trimming, Sawney allegedly vanished into the wilderness with Agnes Black Douglas, a woman with reportedly vicious inclinations and even accusations of witchcraft hanging over her.
Together they found refuge in a coastal cave at Benenhead between Girvan and Ballantrae. This wasn't just any cave, it was reportedly 200 yards deep, with an entrance conveniently blocked by high tide, the perfect secluded lair for a family with unique dietary needs.
And there, deep in the dark, something monstrous began to grow.
Over the next 25 years, the Bean clan exploded in size: 6 daughters, 8 sons, and then a plethora of incestuously conceived grandchildren, 14 granddaughters and 18 grandsons, all raised in total isolation from the outside world.
Lacking any interest in honest labor, the Bean clan thrived by ambushing travelers on remote roads under the cover of night. Their methods were brutal: robbery followed by murder, and then the grim task of bringing the bodies back to their cave for processing.
The legend details the dismemberment and consumption of the corpses, with leftovers allegedly pickled in barrels. These gruesome remnants would sometimes wash ashore, leading locals to blame animals for the disappearances. A convenient cover story if you think about it.
The sheer number of missing people did eventually raise alarm. Horses were found without riders, wagons abandoned, blood on the trails, panic set in, and locals began avoiding the roads.
Searches were launched, and while one even noted the ominous caves, searchers couldn't fathom anyone living in such a place.
Frustration and desperation led to the hanging of several innocent people, yet the disappearances continued, often casting suspicion on local innkeepers, the last to see many of the missing alive.
All the while, the Beans remained undetected in their coastal cave, feasting on flesh, multiplying and waiting.
But all monsters make mistakes. The clan's luck finally ran out when they ambushed a married couple returning from a fair on horseback. The husband, skilled in combat and armed with a sword and pistol, managed to fight off the attackers, killing several of the clan.
Tragically, his wife was unhorsed and captured, meeting a hideous fate. The commotion attracted other fairgoers, forcing the Beans to flee. Locals arrived just in time to rescue the man, and he reported the horrific encounter to the local magistrate.
Word of the atrocities reached King James himself. Outraged, he assembled and led a posse of 400 men and a pack of bloodhounds. It wasn't long before the hounds led them to the overlooked cave.
What they found inside, illuminated by torchlight, was a scene of utter horror. Body parts hung like meat in a butcher's shop, barrels overflowing with limbs, and piles of stolen valuables.
The aftermath, according to the more common version of the legend, was swift and brutal. The entire clan was captured alive and deemed so subhuman that they weren't even granted a trial.
They were taken to Edinburgh's Toll jail and then, depending on the account, to Leith or Glasgow for their executions. The men suffered a gruesome fate reminiscent of medieval treason punishments: genitalia severed and thrown into fires, hands and feet cut off, left to bleed to death.
Sawney's dying words are chillingly recorded as, "It isn't over, it will never be over."
The women and children were then tied to stakes and burned alive.
And so ended the reign of Sawney Bean, or so the story goes.
The question that haunts historians to this day is whether Sawney Bean ever existed.
Now, as compelling and utterly terrifying as this story is, the historical record casts a long shadow of doubt. While some maintain he was a real figure, many consider him a myth.
Think about it. A 25-year killing spree involving over 1,000 victims in 16th century Scotland. Yet, contemporary historical documents like newspapers and diaries from that era are conspicuously silent on such widespread disappearances.
There are even conflicting accounts of when these alleged atrocities occurred, with some placing them centuries earlier than the 16th century.
Most accounts surface in the 18th century, centuries after the events supposedly occurred. Some historians believe it was propaganda invented to smear the Scots as barbaric, or perhaps borrowed from tales of real-life criminals like Christy Cleek, a 14th century cannibal robber with a taste for long pork.
This suggests a possible lineage of terrifying folklore, with older myths perhaps influencing the Sawney Bean narrative.
But what about the cave? It exists. Known locally as Benain Cave, it fits the legend's description almost perfectly. Dark, remote, large enough to house dozens.
Regardless of its historical accuracy, the legend of Sawney Bean has undeniably clawed its way into our cultural consciousness. It's a story that continues to be retold, reimagined, and yes, even used as inspiration for terrifying works of fiction.
Horror fans might recognize some unsettling parallels between the Sawney Bean legend and Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes. The isolated inbred family preying on outsiders, the gruesome methods of survival, the sheer brutality.
So, was Alexander Sawney Bean a real-life monster who terrorized the Scottish coast? Or a chilling fabrication, a product of folklore and sensationalized storytelling? The evidence leans heavily towards the latter.
Yet, the legend persists, a testament to our enduring fascination with the macabre and the unsettling stories that blur the lines between history and horror. It serves as a potent reminder that sometimes the most terrifying tales are the ones we can't quite prove or disprove.
So what do you think? Was Sawney Bean a real-life Hannibal Lecter, or just a boogeyman invented to scare the kids and sell a few pamphlets?
Either way, his story reminds us that history is often stranger and darker than fiction. And sometimes, the oddest tales are the ones that stick with us the longest.
If you enjoyed this slice of Scotland's sinister past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more dives into the weirdest corners of history. Until next time, stay curious.